Welcome to the She Did It Her Way podcast, where it's all about making the ultimate leap from your 9 to 5 and building a business and life you love, all while doing it your way. I'm your host, Amanda Boleyn. Let's get started. One of the most common questions I get asked when it comes to podcasting is, Amanda, how do I work with sponsors? And on today's podcast episode, I'm going to walk you through the 3 ways on how to make money with your podcast and why sponsorship should be the last way in which you approach making money with your podcast. Before we get into this week's podcast episode, all about how to make money with your podcast, I want to give a special shout out to this week's iTunes reviewer from Kelsey Yeslick, and it is triple yes. I found Amanda's podcast a few years ago, and let me tell you, it's gold. I've been binging the hell out of the episodes every time I'm in my car, and I come out feeling more motivated and inspired. I recently set my leap date right before I found her podcast and discovered what it was. And those episodes about setting a date really resonated with me. She gets me because she's been there and been through what I'm going through, which is helpful and gives me the hope that this stage won't last forever and I will be working for myself soon. Seriously, thank you, Amanda. Kelsey, thank you so much for leaving an iTunes review. It means the world to me, not only for all of you tuning in and spending your time and your ears and energy with me, but then also taking that extra effort to leave a review. It means so much to me as a creator. You have no idea. But I do want to say a few things though before we get into today's podcast episode, because Kelsey's, your review pointed out a couple of different things, one being the leap date. So if you were listening to this podcast and you are thinking about starting your business, maybe you've taken a few steps, you've kind of dabbled, maybe you feel like you've been side hustling for a little too long and you just need to get motivated and serious, highly recommend pick a leap date. Don't overthink too much about it and release it and detach from it. What I see a lot of times happens and it becomes constrictive is when you try to set a leap date and you're looking at all these factors and you're thinking about, oh, well, that's the holiday, like, oh, the birthday, like your brain starts coming up with reasons why that leap date won't work. And then you start to feel, going back to that constrictive energy, and then you start to feel heavy and it's not an expansive energy. So when you set that leap date, just set it, trust and know that you're setting it. Like there's a reason why you've been called to that date, and don't really focus on, okay, how am I going to quit my job? Especially if you're in a stage where you're like, I know I want to quit my job. I have no idea what I want to do, because what I'll tell you is that when you set that intention and you release it and kind of detach from that outcome and you start to ask questions about like, what are the next steps I can take? The universe starts to shift alongside of you and it starts to expose you to things of being the next step. And I think that's the beautiful thing and the magic about the space in which we operate in. It takes a little bit of trust and it takes a little bit of practice to trust that. But when you can release the how, because that's really where a lot of people get caught up. It's where I used to get caught up, and that's when I used to try to control things. And now it's much different because you're creating that space for those other things to come in. So setting the leap date is so powerful. So if you have not done that yet, regardless of where you're at on the journey, make sure you set a leap date, because that is going to bring things into focus. And that is how it is going to really energize you and inspire you to get into aligned action. The second piece is that when she said, I hope this stage gives me the hope that the stage won't last for forever, and it won't. The stage of the 9 to 5 and working and building your business in parallel will not last forever, as long as you are doing all the necessary things that are moving the needle forward and being productive as opposed to being busy, which is really one of the key things that we focus on in Elevate University, because you can take a course and maybe get halfway through it, or maybe you have taken courses of your own, you've signed up, you've paid the money, you've gone halfway through it, but you haven't really seen results because you haven't really taken that action. So that's the piece with Elevate University. Like, you're not going to be in any stage of your life as long as you are constantly putting yourself in the future thought and behaving that way and taking massive action to get to the result that you want. That is my side of a little tangent. I know, but we will dive into this week's podcast episode, but really want to just touch on those 2 things that came out of Kelsey's review. So thank you. So this week, the 3 ways to generate money and make money in your podcast, with your podcast, right? That's one of the main questions that I get often is, Amanda, Amanda, like, how do I make money? And then the follow-up question is, how do I work with sponsors? How many downloads do I need? And so the questions start to really focus on making money through the sponsorship route. And there's no right or wrong way to do things. And what I'm going to share with you today is my personal opinion, having ran and produced a podcast since 2015, and what I have found has worked really well, and what are some pitfalls that I would suggest avoiding and that I teach my students. And so the three main ways to make money is one, and this is how I see it. I see it in three key buckets. I'm sure there's like definitely other more specific ways, which I'm going to dive into a few of those, but I really look at it in three key buckets. One, using the podcast to make money through your own products and services. So that might be if you have a coaching business, if you sell digital courses, if you have group coaching, if you are, let's say, a marketer or a copywriter, whatever that looks like, you are using the podcast to market your own products and services. The second is using affiliate marketing. So maybe you don't have a product or service yet, but you have people, or you know people, you know of softwares that would benefit your audience. And so by you sharing that product or service, someone else's, you are then marketing. And so you get a piece of that revenue share. And I have so many thoughts on affiliate marketing, and the way that I used to think about affiliate marketing versus how I think about it today is vastly different, which I'll share and dive into as well. And then the third way is sponsorship. And so I'm going to kind of start with the third one first, which is sponsorship, and work my way back to the first one, which is your products and services, because I always recommend leading with products and services. And then if you don't have yours, then let's look at affiliate marketing. And then if you are not into affiliate marketing or whatnot have you, then maybe you can do sponsorship in parallel and or go to that option. Okay. So sponsorship is like a wonderful way to generate revenue. We have generated thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in sponsorship revenue. And I am so grateful for that, to be able to have so many of you tune in and listen to the show. That then allows me and allows for brands to reach out to us to say, hey, your audience and what we offer is aligned. Can we do a partnership and can we do a sponsorship, right? And so I'm so grateful for that. And I'm not discounting that. Some highs and lows with sponsorship is, especially in the beginning of your podcast life and the journey of your podcast, is that for us, it took time to build an audience to the level that certain brand names wanted to sponsor our show. And we have 95% of the time, companies and brands have always reached out to us. And so I wasn't investing my time or energy trying to seek out sponsorship. And I think that's something that's really key, is that in the beginning, your time is so limited. And I think actually even, further in your journey of a podcaster and business and person, we should always be assessing our time in terms of, okay, well, if I say yes to one thing, then what am I indirectly saying a no to? And I always recommend that your time that you're going to spend reaching out to sponsorships and cultivating that relationship and finding those that are going to sponsor your podcast could potentially, most likely, I would guess, and this is again what I recommend, you could take those hours and really invest in marketing your own products or services. So the way that I like to look at sponsorship is, it's great when it's there and it comes in as supplemental, but it's not the backbone of how I make money. Because I have been in positions where the sponsorship was great for 5 months straight, and so you kind of get used to this income coming in, and then 1 month the sponsor decided that they were changing their direction and they didn't renew their sponsorship package. And so that was a really big wake up call where I was like, okay, I don't want to put all my eggs in a basket, in this one basket about how I'm making money. So do we still work with sponsors when it's a good fit and it's aligned? Heck yes, absolutely. Because I always want to make sure, one, I am protecting your ears. I'm not just going to serve up a ton of ads on my show. And two, it's got to make sense and it's got to feel really good. I have turned down, a couple years ago, I actually turned down, it was Yahoo Business at the time, and they were rebranding. I decided to turn them down because if you've been listening to the podcast, I rave and talk about Google Drive, and Gmail. And I was like, that just doesn't feel right to me to be talking about your competitor all the time organically and then take money to then present to my audience. So that's also where you have to consider like being really intentional in protecting your audience, your ears, and the integrity of your show, and to not just throw sponsors because it's a money making opportunity. But again, you might ask another podcaster and they might say something completely different. All this today, what I'm sharing with you is really my own experience and what I've learned. So again, with sponsorship, it's really looking at the time that you would invest reaching out and trying to cultivate and find sponsors to work with you versus could you take that and really build your own engine and your own machine with products and services and or affiliate marketing, which I believe those two options, the last two, are ones that you have the most control over and ability to influence. So sponsorship is great as supplemental, but I would not look at it as the end all be all. But here's the other thing too. If you find yourself gravitating towards wanting to do sponsorship, I really invite you to kind of go deeper with that. Are you wanting to lead with sponsorship because you're fearful of putting out your own products or services? And I share that because I've seen that with students that I've worked with, and that happened with me, especially at the beginning. I was like, I don't want to offer my own products or services. I don't even know what I would offer, right? And I kind of shied away from affiliate marketing, which I'll tell you why in just a moment. And so I invite you to go deeper with that question. And again, for some of you, it might be, no, I really want to do sponsorship. Like that's how I want to make money. I increase the eyeballs. Like this is how I want to do it. And some of you, you might realize like, oh, I'm actually trying to use the vehicle of sponsorship to kind of protect myself, protect my ego, to not get uncomfortable. And so I invite you to really take a look and think about that. So that's sponsorship. I'm sure I might talk a little bit more as I go into affiliate marketing and products and services, but that's really how I would recommend looking at the sponsorship income. If you just Google podcast networks, you can find podcast networks that essentially connect you with brands. And sometimes they'll do like a one-off show. We typically require a 4-show buy minimum just because there is a lot of energy and time and work put into navigating, going back and forth with the conversation, signing legal agreements, and then actually creating the insert and making sure that it gets into our podcast. So we now require a 4 minimum show buy, but in the beginning, we would say yes to like a 1-off or a 2-off. And so that's just like, if you were to go into the making money with sponsorship, that's one of the ways that you can do it is get plugged into a podcast network. So you can do that. You can also reach out to brands directly, but most time I find that you can listen to podcast shows and then find out which brands are sponsoring those shows and then reach out to those brands. But again, you will find that some brands are actually part of a network. So the way that you work with those brands is you go through a network. So affiliate marketing. Now, when I first got into online business, I remember learning about affiliate marketing and I was like, oh my God, this is so gross. Like, ew. And the truth is you're going to find whatever you look for in life. And I think I was looking for that, oh my God, ew. And the way I have now look at affiliate marketing, I'm like, okay, this totally makes sense. Like, I get it. And I get why it is the way that it is. And then I also understand why it may potentially have the reputation that it does. If you come across someone who is simply pushing someone's product because of a dollar bill that they can make, as opposed to, okay, it is an aligned fit with my audience, like that can definitely turn you off. But the thing that I love about affiliate marketing is that when you share a product or service with your audience, and by you marketing it, it's simply the business's way of compensating you. So rather than them paying for their own marketing, by you sharing their product or service with your audience, they're essentially redirecting that money to you. A great example of this is 3 or 4 years ago. My friend Natalie Bacon at the time had a blogging course, and I had people in my community, and I feel like I know that I've shared this on the podcast before. So apologies if this is the second or third time you're hearing this, but I think it's always a really great reminder because sometimes we need to hear things multiple times in order for them to sink in. But Natalie had a course, Blog with a Full-Time Job. She started her online business blogging about finance, and then she was pretty successful at it, and she created this course. And I had people in my audience asking like, hey, Amanda, can you talk about blogging? And essentially I was like, no, I actually can't, because I can talk about podcasting, but I can't talk about blogging. And so Natalie and I partnered together to do a webinar training for anyone who wanted to learn how to blog. And that was just, for me, what I felt like a really aligned fit affiliate because she had a course. She taught people how to start a blog and she was successful at it. And so with the podcast, I was able to then share with my audience, you guys, saying, hey, we're doing this free training about how to start a blog, 5 different ways. I can't remember the exact name, but it was a free training. And so then when anyone was interested to learn how to start a blog with a full-time job, they went to the training and Natalie gave them value. She talked about blogging. She taught them some things that they need to know. And then at the end, invited them and said, hey, if you really want to do this and you want to dive deeper and you want to get the step-by-step, here's some information about my course. If it's a good fit, you can enroll. And so with that, because I was marketing her and her product to my audience, anyone who enrolled in her course, I then got an affiliate commission. And so one, that's just an example of how you can use your podcast to market a training and then using affiliate link on the back end to generate revenue. And 2, I think it's a great example of having the integrity of like who you partner up with and what products and services are you sharing. Another software service that I'm an affiliate of is Podia. So if you go to the She Did It Her Way website and you go under like start a business, you'll see the Podia there. If you click that link, it is an affiliate link. And it's simply because I'm sharing Podia with you guys because 1, I use it, and 2, I love it. So a few things with affiliate marketing is, again, you just want to make sure that anything that you are, whether it's a software service or it's a course like I did with Natalie a few years ago, you just want to make sure that it is an aligned offering that is a fit for your audience, because you guys are smart. Your audience and the people that follow you, they're smart. Like they can always sense if there's something being pushed or if there's something that just doesn't quite fit right. And so you want to really, again, protect the integrity of that relationship that you have with your audience. And that is what, like, affiliate marketing, when you do it right and you do it well and you do it intentionally, it can be lucrative and you can certainly be able to create revenue in your business from using affiliate marketing. I feel like I might actually do another podcast all about affiliate marketing and kind of my experience and dive even deeper into how would I recommend setting up your affiliate marketing. Actually, I am going to do that. So be on the lookout in the future, okay? So the last one, your own products and services. So this is what I teach inside Podcast Your Way, is really leveraging the podcast to promote your own products and services and use the podcast as a marketing arm to generate leads. And so what it would look like, and again, if you don't have a business yet, there's no worries. If you have an idea of the type of business you want to start, there's a lot of different things that we could do right now that doesn't necessarily commit you into, oh my gosh, I got to figure out the product right away. Okay. So what this would look like is, the podcast, you're pretty clear on the direction you want to go with your business. You would set up the content of your podcast to provide value and solutions for the pain points of your audience. And what you would do is you would invite your audience to engage with you beyond the podcast. So this could be like, hey, download a free guide, come to this free training, join my free Facebook group, so that you can really begin to nurture and build that stronger relationship with them. And also, again, like I said, nurture them. And so the goal is that ultimately when you get them beyond the podcast and you have them on an email list or you invite them to come to a discovery call, you are providing value. And then in those conversions or micro conversion events, if you will, when they are in that scenario, in that position, so they've come from the podcast, they're listening to your podcast, and then they decide to one day sign up for a discovery call. They decide to get on your email list. They decide to come to your training. You then have an amazing opportunity to nurture them, to connect with them, that ultimately they will sign up for your services. They will enroll in your program. And this is the way that I love to teach because of the longevity and the sustainability with it, along with the fact that it puts you as the host and as the business owner so much more in a driver's seat when it comes to the revenue in your business, in knowing like you have a lot more that you can control in knowing the finances generating revenue. That's why I recommend leading with your own products and services. Now, if you're tuning in and you're thinking, Amanda, I don't have a business yet, But do not worry, because what I would recommend for you is the same thing that I would recommend for anyone who does have a business when it comes to starting with and launching their podcast. As long as you know the offer and have some sort of idea of the type of offer you want to provide and offer, that is enough to get you started. And if you've been following along, then you definitely know that I love nothing more than to take strategy and pare it down of like, what are the next 3 to 5 tactical steps, specific steps that we can take. And so in this case, I would decide whether you would want to move your listeners beyond the podcast. So at points, you want to make sure, like, decide whether you want to invite them to a Facebook group, decide if you have some sort of standard opt-in that you are inviting them to. It could be a PDF, it could be a checklist. I would keep it super simple in the beginning as you're starting to reduce any sort of overwhelm, and then consistently invite them to join you either in the Facebook group if that's what you decide to do, or to sign up for an opt-in that then gets them to download that checklist that helps them with whatever it is that they are challenged by, or if there's a pain point, so that they can experience success simply through something that you offered for free. And then you can engage with them in an email sequence on the back end and really get to know them. And building email sequence is a completely different, that's another podcast topic episode, but that's how you can get started even if you don't have a business. But if you do have a business, that's a really simple way just to make sure that you are getting ahead and in front of your audience. And as always, consistently bringing high value content that's relevant and that's helpful and impactful to your audience as well. So those are the 3 main ways that I really see the buckets in making money with your podcast. Again, it's starting with your own products and services, then looking and doing affiliate marketing. You can do affiliate marketing and products and services at the same time too. I mean, you can do all 3 of these at the same time. I'm just really kind of putting them in order of where I would start first, and then sponsorship as the 3rd step or 3rd bucket, if you will, in doing that. So, and also if you are listening to this podcast in real time, I am hosting a 60-minute podcast training on how to launch your podcast in 5 easy steps and do it within the next 30 days. And in the training, I'm going to be covering my exact plug and play content framework, content planning framework. So if thinking about how do you plan content for your podcast kind of gets you overwhelmed, I'm diving in and I'm actually showing you an excerpt from what I teach my students. I'm going through the specific tech setup that you need so you can actually start recording the day after you leave the training, specific tangible next steps. And I'm going to be sharing more about the podcast profitability from the start beyond what I've talked about today. And again, if you don't have a business, but you want to start a podcast, I actually believe that's such a great position to be in, because you're able to build that know, like, and trust and relationship with your audience before you ever offer them anything. Assuming you're listening to real time, you can just head to shedititherway.com and you can click the link at the top of the page and register. There's 2 times that you can attend: March 23rd and March 25th. 23rd is 3 p.m. Central. March 25th is 2 p.m. Central. So I look forward to seeing you there. I am so grateful that you tuned into another podcast episode. And until next time, keep doing it your way. If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, you can head on over to shedititherway.com, where you can access the entire vault of She Did It Her Way podcast episodes. And you can also access free trainings and resources all about how to make the ultimate leap from your 9 to 5. And if you enjoyed today's podcast episode, I would be so grateful if you headed on over to iTunes and left a review letting me know what you love about the She Did It Her Way podcast. Until next time, keep doing it your way.